Welcome. Today we're discussing creating mobile-friendly courses, and I just wanted to do a shout out to Sandra Day Vaki from Morningside College. She was the one who emailed me the suggestion to do this course or this webinar. So we very much listen to our customers, and we do end user support for Morningside. And if you have suggestions of things that you would like to see webinars on, just let us know and we'd be happy to do that. Okay. This webinar is being put on by eClass for Learning. We do a lot in the e-learning space. We support LMS software and web applications. So for our LMS software, we support Moodle, Totara, LearnDash. We also work with WordPress, Mahara, which is an e-portfolio that goes with Moodle, and Tatara Social, which goes with Totara and is a collaborative social platform for organizations. We do hosting of all of those applications. We do a phenomenal job of onboarding and support for our clients. We do theme customization. We can also do development if you have special requirements for the software, or you need things customized, or you need special reports. We can build those for you. We also do course development and make content. We do e-commerce solutions, and we also do end user support where we can almost become your virtual help desk for end users with things like I forgot how to log in or things like that. So feel free to contact us if you are interested in any of those services. My name is Dr. Tammy Frame. I'm the Chief Education Officer of eClass for Learning, and this is my contact information. I am recording today's session, and I will have my contact on the email that you get with the recording link. So if you have any further questions that you didn't get answered today during the webinar, feel free to shoot those my way. I'd be happy to hear from you. We are using GoToWebinar as our software for the webinar today. There should be a tab or a plus sign that says questions, and feel free to put any questions that you have during the webinar. I like dynamic webinars. I like it when the audience asks questions. It makes it a lot more fun. If I don't know the answer, I'll let you know that, and we can research it and email that to the group with the recording link too. So with that, we're going to get started with some tips for making mobile-friendly courses. First of all, to make a really good mobile course, it's really helpful if you know how your learners learn. Are they on the go? Are they people that are traveling a lot, for example, and maybe need to do the course in the air and in airplane mode? Or maybe they work in a hospital which doesn't have such a good network because it's secured, and they still need to learn during their off times that they're there at the hospital, and they need to learn offline. What kinds of devices are they using? Do you have heavy iPad? Are they Android phones? Are they desktop? Is there a smattering? Is there those kinds of things can really help you in your design. When do they access the courses? That's helpful to know. How tech savvy is your audience? And do you provide adequate support for them? You know, if it's an audience that's doing things, let's say teachers after school, evenings, weekends, do you have support during those times to help them? Or if you have a lot of adjunct faculty that has regular jobs and they're at off hours, can they get help during that time? So knowing about your instructors and your learners will really help you design. Now, one thing that I would say about mobile learning, I would say that most course developers and instructors and grading, I still think, well, it can be done mobily. I do think you might have more luck when you're designing and grading and teaching on a regular laptop or desktop. I'm not sure that it works always so well on a phone, but I do think that the mobile devices are in demand and can work well for the learner. Okay, so just I would say that I'm usually thinking about this from the learner perspective. Now, not everybody uses the LMSs that we use. Our LMSs use what's called a responsive theme design, and that's what we use when we design our classes. And they both Moodle and Totara have responsive themes, so does LearnDash. What does that mean? That means that that theme resizes itself. It knows, it detects what kind of device is being connected to the course, if it's a phone, if it's an iPad, if it's a desktop, and it sizes the visual to that device. And oftentimes, like for a phone, the theme will change somewhat and become more tabular, so it's easier with fingers, you know, to do things like that, and things will be in a slightly different place. And it automatically detects it and automatically displays that. Okay, so I would make sure that your LMS has responsive themes, and then I would use a responsive theme for your site. Okay. The next whole section of recommendations have to do with text documents and presentations that you might be uploading to your course. If you've never looked at or taken a course or read articles on writing for the web, I would definitely recommend that you do that as a course designer or instructor. We as humans read a lot different on the web than we do on paper. And these are online courses, and it's even more true if they're using mobile devices. So a lot of these are tips that have to do with writing for the web, and would fit there, but that's where you can get more information too on how to write for the web. One of the things I don't have up here that you will often see for writing on the web is to leave adequate white space between things, so it's not too squished together. You want to keep your titles short and succinct, and the reason is on a phone, if it's really long and it wraps, that's hard to read. So short titles. You want to break content into bite-sized chunks, and in Moodle and Totara, if you go to course administration and edit settings for that course, there are now 2 layouts that you can have, and there's one that I like called one topic per page, and that helps because each topic then becomes its own page instead of this scroll of death where the whole course is right on the front thing. And imagine if you're on a phone and you're trying to find week 15, and where the other one, it shows one at a time and you can jump to the week or the topic that you want. So I think chunking information into smaller chunks really helps on those smaller devices. If you're doing especially like a PowerPoint or a document you're uploading, try to use larger font sizes because, again, it's going to be itty-bitty and they're going to have to use their fingers to zoom, which can get real old. So try to use bigger font sizes. You want to use simple formatting. Things like sans serif fonts have good contrasting colors that go against the background for the text. You want to stick to simple formats that most devices can open. So I started with PDF because that's usually a universal one. Docs, DocX, PowerPoint, you know, you don't want some kind of weird format that will be very difficult for a phone or an iPad to open. I would say try to use Pages instead of downloadable documents whenever possible for your mobile learners. So what I mean by that is if you had something that you wanted them to read on a Word doc, why not just create a page linked from the front page and cut and paste all of that on another page? Then you get rid of some of the hurdles of having to open up documents on these devices, and you make it that much easier. And again, just do anything you can to avoid scrolling, and try not to have too many documents that people have to open. That gets real old on mobile devices. Just going to check and see if we have any questions so far. So far, you guys have been an extremely quiet audience, okay? So let me know if you have specifics that you want to know about. So those are my tips for that. The next thing that I want to talk about, let me just make sure, okay, images. Okay, images are very important. Oh, good, we have a question. Why avoid scrolling? Because if you can, it's just hard on the, if they can see it, let's say I have a main page and I have 5 pages linked to it, and each one I don't have to scroll. It's just that much faster for me. Okay, if you have a very long document, let's say 20 pages, can you imagine on a phone how much you're going to have to scroll? Because it'd be a lot more than even a computer, because it's on a small device. So that's why we try to avoid scrolling as much as possible, and trying to maybe link small bits and pages. It's easier with your finger to tap on a page and then maybe go back and see the next page, as opposed to scrolling on a very small phone. They can do it, but it's a lot of finger action that way. So that's a good question. For images, again, on these devices, they might be connecting most likely in a mobile spot using Wi-Fi, and bandwidth can be an issue, and they might not have the best Wi-Fi. So you want to keep your images to a minimum because they suck a lot of bandwidth. Another thing that you can do is make your images responsive. And I'll send some of these links too, so that you can see. But if you are at all adept at CSS or HTML and doing some coding, what you can do here is you can even say for devices smaller than this, then make this image. For larger, maybe use this image, okay? And so you're really getting into specifying what images you're going to show for what kinds of devices. So that's a little trick that a lot of instructional designers use. A lot of new instructors don't realize the importance of how big images can be. Any thoughts on using SVG format? Paul, what does SVG stand for? I don't know that one. So if you can maybe enlighten us and help us with that, that'd be great. Google it quick over here. So that's not one. Scalable vector graphics. Okay. And then for scalable vector graphics, are they .svg? Because if so, that's not a real common one that not all devices might be able to see. Vector, okay. If modern browsers support it, yeah. And if the LMS that you're using support it, but devices with old Internet Explorer browsers don't. Okay, so this one, it looks like that they will scale, which is kind of what we're after. This is one that I'm not really familiar with, I have to be honest, so that might be a good recommendation to look at. I would just want to test that your LMS supports it, and we'll let you, obviously it'll let you know if it uploads it or not. And then maybe do some testing on your phones and on your iPads and see how it does. And I'm not real sure about that one. Yeah, great comments, and I'm really appreciating those. A lot of new instructors maybe upload some very, very heavy images sometimes and don't realize how long that can take to download, especially if you have bad Wi-Fi. So what you want to do is you want to crop them and make them a more appropriate size. And somebody wrote, you know, I'm really looking for tools to use. I have to say that I use Paint or an equivalent to that quite a bit. And so what I mean by this is, let me just open a huge picture. There's one that I had in my PowerPoint. Okay, and look at how huge that is. So what we can do is we can resize that. Let's go to maybe 10% of that. And now, okay, even that's kind of big. So I'm going to just crop this a little bit now and maybe resize even that to 25%. And now I've got a much lighter photo. You know, I can still give that personal feel to my class and see what I look like, but now it would take far less time for them to download. Okay, and so tools like that can help you make your size and your pixel size better. So Paul's echoing this. I think he and I should team teach this someday. And here's one that he's recommending, jpegmini.com and tinypng.com to compress. Oh, thank you so much. I'll put those in the email. That's awesome, Paul. I didn't know about those. But you do want to look at those pixel sizes because sometimes that can really suck up a lot of bandwidth, and they could be taking forever on a mobile device to download. Okay, and then usually you want to stay with standard image formats like JPEG, GIF, and PNG. Those are the ones that I typically use. I didn't know before about today the SVG, so I'll have to test that one. But most devices are used to opening those. And if you go too far out of the norm, then people might not be able to open them. All right. So that's some things about images. The standard for audio is MP3 format. Pretty much every device can open that, so that's pretty simple. Now video, this is a big one for me. I get a lot of calls on this one where students, because we do a lot of end user support for universities, and a lot of times students call and say, I can't view the video. So my first recommendation is, even though LMS systems will allow you to make a video in just about anything and will take that file and upload it to the LMS, I wouldn't recommend doing that. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first is whatever you made it in, it's .mov or whatever that format is, and the student may not have the right player that you have in order to play it. And then it takes a lot of bandwidth to upload it, a raw video file, and it takes a lot of bandwidth to download it, and then they might not even be able to play it on their device. Let's say you did a QuickTime, and maybe the Android phone can't do that. Okay, and he's got, so Paul is saying making MP3s and videos smaller are also another big thing for people forget. Handbrake is a good converter and compressor to MP4. So yeah, if you are going to do one, do it in MP4. Or use a YouTube or streaming server. And I would even go with I was going to go with the YouTube and streaming server. So if you don't want to go with YouTube or Vimeo, you would definitely want to convert it, use a converter to make it an MP4. That's sort of universal for all the devices. I really like going to YouTube or Vimeo. I tend to use YouTube more. And what I like about that, and I'm going to show you on YouTube some things you can do, is whatever, you can make your video in anything you want and you can upload. So I tend to like Screencastify is a really good screencasting one that you can do right in your Chrome browser, and then I can upload directly to YouTube. What I like about embedding the movie into my LMS is we get the whole player. The student doesn't leave the course. They don't see all the ads that are around YouTube. And it streams super, super fast. It's actually coming from YouTube. So just like any YouTube video that you would play, there's a play button, and it goes super, super fast. And I just think that that makes it a really fast experience. When you upload to something like YouTube or Vimeo, it actually has transcoders in it that takes your video, whatever format you made it in, and transcodes it into a universal format that everybody can view, very much like a PDF does that too. And so that's why that would be what I like to do. I'm just going to go to my YouTube, and we'll come back to this one. A lot of people are unaware of some of the tools in YouTube. First of all, sometimes when I work with instructors, they don't realize that if you have a Google account, you automatically get a channel. And then under your channel, you have a video manager of movies that you can upload that you've made. Now, under edit, sometimes people don't want to have a movie here because they don't, this is their content, and if people are paying for a course and it's free on YouTube, why would I do that? But there is some privacy things, and if you go to unlisted, that's typically what I do. That means it's not searchable on Google, but I can embed it into my course, okay? So there are some privacy settings to keep your content going well. Let's just go back for a second. And if I click on this video, okay, when you, in your video, there's a share button here. And this is where I get my embed code. And what I do with this is I actually take this and I copy it and I put this into my LMS, wherever I would put content. And sometimes you have to click the HTML in Moodle and Totara, you do brackets, and that's where the code goes. And then it brings in the whole player without the ads and without without any of this. So maybe I'll do that quick. Let's just go to one quick. I'll go to my, and I'll show you how to embed. And I'll show you a couple other nifty tools in YouTube. All right, so here we go. And then I've got a practice course for demos like this. It's kind of messy. And I turn my editing on. And I think most LMSs are going to be very similar. I add an activity. So I'm just going to add a label. That just means anything I want to add here. And okay, my show everything button. And here's what I was talking about is that HTML. Anytime I'm going to put HTML in, I just have to have that button there. Now we're already seeing the video, save and return to course. And let's scroll down. Here it is. And see, all they have to do now is press play, and it's actually streaming from YouTube, and they didn't have to get it into the right player. They didn't have to download the whole movie. Now it's not public for everybody to see, just people in my course. So I find that to be really slick. And kind of what I like. Another thing that I'm starting to love about YouTube, and I'm going to do a webinar in a couple months with this, is they now have a create. And what I can do with this is it has a video editor. So if I got in my video or my screencast things that I didn't want. All my videos show here, and I just drag them. I can use a whole bunch of tools in here. Let's see here. There they are. I can clip it, you know, and make it shorter. I can, and I'll practice a little bit more. I've got sticky fingers today, but we can clip it. We can add music. They have a ton of copyright-free music, which is so hard in online. So now, and I can add transitions. I can add text like titles. I can add stills and have titles, and you know, it just has worked out really well for quick editing and making my videos look a lot more professional in just a few clips. And a lot of people don't even know that's there. So that's another advantage of using something like YouTube. So I really like uploading my videos and embedding them there. You don't want to use programs that use things like Java, and one that I've seen a lot is Screencast-O-Matic. People love that one, but a lot of especially iPad users have a hard time playing those, and we get calls about that. So again, you would want to you can make your movie in anything you want, but then I would really suggest that you upload it to a transcoder like YouTube or Vimeo so that it becomes universal and everybody is able to watch it and stream it on their device. And then, like I said, I would consider making your videos unlisted so that your content is private, so that it's, you know, you probably created it for your students and then it's not out there for everybody to consume. So those are some of my video tips. Let me get back into presentation mode here. Tips for SCORM. SCORM is a media interactive program. I find that in K-12 and higher ed, people don't use it very much, maybe because of the cost and because they have so much content that they need to deliver so rapidly. It is used in nonprofits, government, and business and compliance training a great deal. And you need special software to make SCORM, things like Adobe Captivate is one. We use Articulate Storyline in our shop. We just found it was best to standardize on one, and I would recommend maybe your organization might want to think about that too. It's important with SCORM to keep the latest software, and I'll talk about that in a minute. SCORM is kind of fun. It's like a screencast sort of, where you can have almost like a PowerPoint going or video, and you can have a voiceover with it. But then there are all these things called triggers that you can add to make them interactive, and sometimes more like animated software, and you can have people drag things, or you can have them do quiz questions, and based on the results, different things can happen. And so it's really powerful. The disadvantage is maybe that it takes a long time to develop with SCORM, and it can be kind of costly, and the software is not cheap either. So just Captivate is another one. Camtasia is another one. So there is a cost to the software. You want to keep the latest software that you can, because here's what happens with SCORM, especially lately. We've gotten a lot of calls on SCORM lately. The browsers keep changing, and so then the software will update to change the new specifics that browsers need to read SCORM. So I would say 99% of the SCORM issues we have are not LMS related, they are browser related, okay? And so you want the software to have the latest changes for the latest browsers to publish the SCORM correctly to run in all of the browsers. Now, another thing that Articulate Storyline did, they are kind of on the upper level of the most expensive, but they recently changed their model to have a subscription software that's online. And so you automatically get all the updates, and it's just a flat fee. And we're really liking that a lot. So we automatically, everybody in our shop is on the same version, because that can be a problem if we're troubleshooting or working on software and we all had different versions. That could be quite disastrous. So you want to be on the latest. Um, the different softwares will have different publishing settings for mobile devices, especially iPads, and you'll want to know your software well enough to know what the recommended settings are when you publish your SCORM so that it will run on those devices. Another thing that I think people don't consider with SCORM is that browsers are always changing. And so therefore, you're never quite done with your SCORM. You're always going to have to be publishing and maintaining it to keep up with all of the changes in the browsers. So just know that and budget for that. I think sometimes people spend a lot of time and money on their SCORM and are sort of upset when it doesn't work on the newest iPad a couple months later, and that will be because it has a new Safari version, and you need to get the latest software that has those changes, and then you need to republish it. Now, some LMSs like Moodle and Tatara have a way where you can have a place, like a repository, where you keep dropping your newest versions, and then it will automatically go and look for new versions every time a cron job is run and grab it. So you don't have to go into all of your courses all the time and find them and upload them, and that can be a time saver too. But just know that once you publish a SCORM, there's probably going to be a time a few months later in the future where you have to republish it. And that doesn't mean that you have to remake your content. You just have to keep up on your software, republish it for the latest settings in browsers. Another thing that you can do, and we do a lot at our end user support of helping people with, is educate users on the best browser settings for SCORM. And we have a blog post on this, and I'll be sending that to you too. So here I have the different browsers and what settings users should have. Okay, so Safari and Chrome and Firefox. Safari was a couple months ago a real problem. They introduced a new iOS version, and when that happens, the Safari also gets updated if you update to the newest iOS version. And for whatever reasons, Apple, the defaults don't have a lot of things that we need to run SCORM as the settings, and you can change those settings. As you can see, there's quite a bit to do, and I think this was a kind of a poor choice of Apple. Maybe their next release will be better, because most people would not think to do all of these things. So we do spend some time sometimes in the help desk helping people go through all of this so that they can view it, especially in the newest version of Safari, has been kind of difficult with SCORM. So that's another thing. You could post this in your course to help people, and we're often emailing them that link and saying, okay, can you check that you have all these settings and then see if it plays, and often it will. You don't want to publish in Flash or HTML5. When you publish your SCORM from these softwares, it gives you a whole bunch of options. And the reason is those won't work on some devices, I think especially iPads. And so then those whole users are unable to view it. Yeah, so Paul said SCORM a lot depends on the LMS. So Java is not needed for some LMSs, while only JavaScript is needed for others. Okay, so that and he was saying like scorm.com or some total. And I don't work with those LMSs, so that's good to know. I just know that for the Java, we've had problems with people on iPads not being able to do it, or Flash, or HTML5. So I would recommend, if you can, to stay away from those things. People then would need to have Java installed to run Java, things in there. So again, we're trying to be as universal as possible. And SCORM is beautiful and it's fun, but it can be some troubleshooting with end users. And I'm finding more and more that, you can have 1,000 users, let's say, that we're supporting at a university, and of all the questions that we get, 99.9% we can solve by going and getting the right browser settings. If the SCORM was published correctly in the first place. And a lot of these will have, publish for LMS, so that's one, but there are other things that you can do when you're publishing to help on the iPad. I know in Articulate, there's some settings that we use that work better on iPads. And then, making sure that people have their browsers enabled correctly to read that is a whole nother piece. So, yeah, you've got several things going, don't you? You've got to publish your SCORM correctly for the mobile device. You've got to have an LMS that's not glitchy for SCORM and is set for different devices. And then you've got to have the browser that the person is using. They have to have the right settings in order to view it too. So it can be kind of complicated. There's a lot of pieces to that. So yeah, tips for SCORM. That could be a whole nother webinar unto itself. Yeah. Another thing that you might want to consider if you have a lot of mobile users is announcements. And I have really rethought this from a recent course that I took online. They really did a great job with announcements. And I'm going to really rethink that in my own courses. And I enjoyed the announcements. We got about 3 a week, and they were very personal. And because students are used to checking their mobile devices and email, announcements are linked to notifications, and so they're linked to the user's email. And when you post an announcement, it'll be posted in the course, but it'll also go out as an email or a text, depending on how the user prefers it in their profile. And I think that can really, really help in these mobile environments and make the courses a lot more dynamic for people and how they like to access content. So I'm going to be using a lot more announcements in the future. I think I'm going to be doing videos in my announcements more often. That's what they did in the online class that I took, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think the announcements were my favorite. Okay. Another thing that you might want to see is if your LMS has a mobile app. And again, I know these two the best. So Moodle has a mobile app that has come a long way. I hadn't revisited it in quite a while, but in this last week I had a client that needed it, and also for this webinar, and it has come a long way. In the beginning, we were talking about the fact that you might have users that need to access content offline, which seems kind of funny, like you're taking an online course and you don't have internet, but it's becoming more and more common. Things like people being on an airplane and having time to want to learn, but they don't have an internet connection. Or Synogen in Totara, the reason they made one was because they were designing for anesthesiologists who work in hospitals. And hospital networks are very locked down and very difficult to use. And they would also often have dead time between surgeries when they could be studying and had a lot of compliance things they needed to keep up with and had no network. So the way that these work, it's pretty cool, is you can download the content ahead of time. And then like next to each thing is a download button, and it can be on your phone. I just tested this a lot this week. And then when you're on airplane mode or you don't have wireless, you can click on it and you can read the content. It's so awesome. So you do have to do the work of pre-downloading ahead of time what you think you want to look at, but it does work. Um, and Paul's just awesome. Next time I'm going to ask him to team teach with me. FYI, you can also use the Domino mobile app with Totara. It has been integrated with Totara and Moodle. Oh, I didn't know that. So that is awesome. I did read about that one a little bit, didn't know so much about it. Is it free, by the way? Do you know, Paul? That one's free? No, it's not. Okay. Yeah. All right. The Moodle mobile app is free. And you can, what's nice is you can do all of these things offline if you want to. Like you could take a quiz, you can post to a discussion board, and when you come online again, it will sync those things for you. So that's really cool. You can also read content that you downloaded ahead of time. And the Totara app made by Synogen. Synogen's just a great Totara partner. We've done projects with them before. They're awesome at development, and we're awesome at onboarding and support and content. And so together we often partner up, and it works pretty good. They made one for these anesthesiologists that has worked really well too. And so unfortunately that one does have a fee. It's based on the number of users you have, but it is pretty cool. And now I can add the other one to the list too. So I'll have to test that one out. Although if it has a fee, I'll just see how much it is. The last thing that I have to say is test before you deploy. I cannot tell you how many people do not do this. They deploy the night before, and then we get a whole bunch of emergency calls from them, our clients going, you know, this isn't working, that isn't working. The SCORM isn't working, it's not working on this kind of device. I would really test before you go live with users, and there's a couple things you need to test. You need to test on multiple devices, so iOS devices like an iPad, and an Android device like a phone, and a desktop and a laptop, and see how it looks in all of those things and that everything can open. And also try all the different browsers that you can as well, because that has a lot to do with it too. The more you do that and troubleshoot ahead of time and get everything universal, the fewer tech calls you're going to get once you do it, and the fewer frustrated learners on devices that you'll have. Yeah, so any other questions? I really enjoyed Paul helping me out and giving so many great tips. That was awesome. Well, while you think of some, I'll just put up what other webinars we have coming up in case you're interested. And thanks for joining for this one too. And we have some that might be of interest to people. So today's was on creating mobile environments, and again, thank you to Sandy for recommending that one. We are doing one next week on science, on Google STEM applications. So especially apps and extensions and add-ons that really work for science, technology, engineering, and math. We often hear from clients saying, well, what can we do with Google with science? And there's quite a bit out there of free software. Um, Here's another tip from Paul. Um, when looking for a mobile authoring tool, make sure it supports a true responsive approach, not just shrink the screen like most do. Paul, do you have any that you especially like? When you say true responsive ones and or ones you don't like that really aren't truly responsive? And that can be from the LMS, or it could be like if you're making SCORM too, I would think. Yeah, not just shrinking, but that, all the formats are going to work on all the devices. And just seeing if he's been such a wealth of knowledge. Um, um, okay, so you don't feel like Storyline is Spring. Ones that are GOMO and do min no. Okay, so I will add that to the notes after this, and that would be really helpful. I don't know the last two as much. Ones that are in between are Lectora and Captivate. Okay, great help on that. Good. Um, We also have a webinar on March 30th if you're a Totara person, or if you're interested in learning about Totara. They have a report builder that's pretty robust. That means that you don't need to know MySQL, you don't need to know any programming. You can pull things from the database and arrange them how you want. And it's a lot of just pull down menus and radio buttons and selecting what you want and who gets it and at what intervals and how you want data to roll up. And it's pretty incredible and pretty fun. So I'll be demoing that on March 30th. And again, I'd like to really put a shout out for Paul and all of his great help today. And I learned a lot from his suggestions too. So that was awesome. If you come up with other questions, feel free to email them to me. I will probably have the recording out either late tonight or early tomorrow, and it'll have my contact information. If you think of other things that you want to have webinars on as well, let me know. Great. It was great having you here today, and have a good rest of your week. Thanks much. Bye-bye.